What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So for anyone who considers themselves a Pokemon theorist, the Pokemon timeline is an immensely important tool that is frequently used when constructing good theories. The Pokemon timeline is pretty much set in stone, but there is one part of it that hasn't been specified, and that's the amount of time that takes place between Gens 2 and 4 and Black and White. This unknown amount of time has always bothered me, but with some help from Pokemon Sun and Moon, I believe I have found a definitive answer as to how much time passes between these games. Now I need to mention before we dive into the theory that I was putting this whole thing together before Candy Eevee made her video on the Pokemon timeline. However, there are some details in her video that actually strengthen my own theory, so I still wanted to share it with you guys. This isn't a response video to her, and I'm certainly not trying to go after her or prove her wrong, I'm simply just presenting my own idea on the matter. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the theory. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is show you guys my theory as it stood before Candy Eevee's video in order to show you how it developed and changed with the information she presented. So the central detail that pieces all of this together is mentioned in the Looker episode of Sun and Moon. Looker mentions that 10 years ago, he found Annabelle washed up on a beach where she told him that she was a powerful trainer from the Hoenn region where she protected a tower, clearly referring to her status as a frontier brain in Pokemon Emerald. The reason that this is important is because it tells us how far ahead Sun and Moon take place in relation to Emerald, that being 10 years. Since Emerald takes place at the beginning of the timeline along with Ruby, Sapphire, and Red, Blue, and Yellow, and Sun and Moon takes place at the current end of the timeline, we now know that 10 years covers the entire expanse of the Pokemon timeline as it currently stands. The reason why I believe this is the case, as opposed to what Candy Eevee suggested, where Annabelle was found on the beach a few years after Emerald, is because I believe both of these factors were intentionally mentioned in order to give us a time frame from Emerald to Sun and Moon. Why I think this is because if Looker finding Annabelle didn't take place during the events of Emerald, there would be no need to mention that she was a frontier brain or how long ago the event had occurred, because it would be giving off the wrong impression. Of course, Annabelle could have been a frontier brain after the events of Emerald, but since the only time we know her as one is in Emerald, I believe that this is Game Freak's way of giving us a time frame from Pokemon Emerald to Sun and Moon. Another thing that strengthens this idea is the appearance of Red and Blue. If it is the case that Sun and Moon take place 10 years after Red and Blue, that would make the titular characters 21 years old, which fits their appearance perfectly. So now that we've established that the entire timeline takes place over 10 years, we just need to subtract all the time that takes place in between that we already know to be true. For example, we know that there is 3 years in between Gens 1 and 3 and Gens 2 and 4, so we can subtract that from 10 years and have 7 years left remaining. The other time frame we know is that from Black and White to Black and White 2, 2 years passes. So once again, we can subtract those 2 years from the remaining time, and it leaves 5 of the 10 years still unaccounted for. At this point, we also only have 2 spots that we can fit this time into, and that's between Gens 2 and 4 and Black and White, and between Black and White 2, X and Y, and Sun and Moon. Since it's most likely that one of these spots will be 3 years and one will be 2, I just had to decide which spot was which. Ultimately, I decided at the time that there had to be 3 years between Gens 2 and 4 and Black and White, primarily because of Caitlyn. Caitlyn is one of the Unova Elite Four who appears in Heart Gold and Soul Silver at the Battle Frontier, and she appears noticeably younger than she does in Black and White. Candy Eevee suggested that due to this age change, there might be a gap of about 6 to 8 years in between the games. However, I believe that 3 years is still enough time for her to age this much, especially at her age. Caitlyn is confirmed to be 14 at the time of Heart Gold and Soul Silver. For comparison, here's a picture of me at 14. Okay, that's enough of that. And me at 17. As you can see, 17-year-old me looks pretty different and older than 14-year-old me, even with just a 3-year difference. So I think it's absolutely plausible that she is just 3 years older. However, the thing that really seals the deal on this comes from the other gap in time between X and Y, Black and White 2, and Sun and Moon. Obviously, since I had previously theorized that the other gap in time was 3 years long, that means that this gap has to be 2 years long because we only have 5 years total to work with. This is where Candy Eevee's video comes in, because thanks to her video, I found out that this part of my theory is 100% confirmed. She mentioned that in the Sun and Moon concept art for Grimsley, it states that this is Grimsley 2 years later from when we last saw him, which was in Black and White 2. With that being said, since this half of my theory turned out to be true, I think it makes it a lot more likely that the other half is true as well, and there are indeed 3 years between Gens 2 and 4 and Black and White. So there you have it. I thought that it was really cool that half of my theory was confirmed before I even actually knew about it, so I thought I would go ahead and make a video about the whole thing to see what you guys thought about it. Also, if you haven't seen Candy Evie's video yet, be sure to check that out by clicking the iCard in the top right corner of the screen. She goes into more detail on the entire timeline in general, and like I said, she came to a different conclusion than I did, so be sure to check her video out and then let me know in the comments below which theory you prefer or if you have a theory of your own. Finally, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't, and also click that little bell next to the subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload. There is an important video going live Tuesday the 3rd that is going to detail my plans for 2017 and also give some information about some giveaways that I will potentially be doing throughout the year. So that is a video that you're definitely not going to want to miss. With all that being said, I'll see you guys with the next video, and until then, I'll smell you guys later.